Hello and welcome in to this week's edition of the Hard Fowl. I'm your host, Intern Joe Macheca. With me, as always, the man, the myth, the legend, Jack Veltri, my co-host. Jack, how are we doing this week?
Doing great, buddy. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Transitioning over to insider insider mode, and then basketball season as always. As I had ourselves playing in another window real quick, but yeah, man, I'm doing good.
Yeah, I like the quarter zip there, right?
Absolutely, yeah. For the fighting quarter zips, Jack and I had to bring it out. I'm writing an article about that currently. It should go out Friday. I think we're slating it for. But Lamont talked about it in his post-game presser last night. We'll get to everything you need to know from the win against Notre Dame, the fighting quarter zips, and Lamont Paris, the men's basketball team, are 6-0 on the season. Very big win last night, as we alluded to, against Notre Dame. Jack, you were there last night. Give me your initial thoughts on the win.
Huge win, man. First off, great crowd last night. You had over 15,000 people in the arena, so I think the fans and the everyone got the message from the players that they need to show up for this game, big game against Notre Dame. So and they did so. So shout out to the fans for making it a really crazy environment. I'm sure everyone by now has seen what Notre Dame's coach Micah Shrewsbury had to say about the atmosphere there, and it was a pretty funny comment, but it's true, right? You know, it was a wild place to be on a Tuesday night, and South Carolina played really well to get the job done. It was a little bit of a struggle at the start of the first and second half, but once they kind of settled in and relaxed a little bit, they played a lot better. And they were able to get the win. So,
Yeah, that's the biggest part. Staying alive, surviving, and advancing. We know that is all the theme in college basketball. But they looked really good last night, particularly on the defensive end. You know, BJ Mack and Meechie both talked about it, but them playing well, playing together on the defensive end, which is an adjustment from last year. I don't think they played as together on defense, but playing together, playing well on defense gives them more opportunities and better opportunities to shoot the ball on offense, especially in transition. They did well in transition last night against Notre Dame. I couldn't find the exact numbers of transition buckets against Notre Dame in particular, but they're doing pretty well on the year. They're ranked inside the top 50 for both transition offense and transition defense. So really good stuff out of Lamont's crew. And again, I don't think that happens without the chemistry that these guys have day in and day out. Most of the starters in the rotation is starting to form. Obviously, you want Colin Murray-Boyles back as soon as possible, but you have pretty much your core group of guys, which you're going to roll with from here, at least through the gauntlet of the season, through December, January. So, yeah, I mean, big point of this college basketball season is upon us, Jack.
and here's the thing, Joe. South Carolina didn't even play their best game last night. To be honest, I mean, like I said before, they struggled a little bit, and like you said, they do need CMB back as soon as possible. By the way, with him, in case you guys missed it, wrote a story about it, asked Lamont about it, even posted it on the forum last night. CMB should be back relatively soon. We're hoping. He should have practiced today. That's what Lamont said last night. He should have practiced today, full go, able to do all the full court, half court work, whatever that means. But it's right now, it's also about getting his strength back, because I don't know if you guys have ever had mono before. I haven't. Joe, have you had mono?
I've had mono. It's not fun. It's not
Yeah.
fun at all. I had it in high school lacrosse season. Not fun.
According to mono, whatever the thing is, you lose a lot of weight with mono. So you need that weight, that mass to be able to play and compete in basketball, have that strength. And CMB just doesn't really have that right now, apparently. I don't know how much weight he's dropped. Based on what has been said, it seems like it's a little bit. So he's going to need to regain some of that back in order to get to full strength. And then we'll probably see him playing some games. When, I don't know when for sure. I know someone on the live thread yesterday from the basketball game on the forums mentioned that Derek Scott, the radio announcer for South Carolina, was saying that CMB could be back for Clemson. I don't know. I mean, Lamont didn't give a specific date on it, anything yet. I find it really hard to believe that CMB would able to be having enough strength to get back and play in a week. I mean, a week from now, honestly, when you think about it. I would think more realistically, maybe the end of non-conference play, but I'm not a doctor. I don't know what the real significance of this is. Like I said, I've never had mono, so I wouldn't know. But I'm just telling you all what I heard. So, yeah. But anyway, back to the basketball. Yeah, they just didn't even play their best game last night, and they won by 12 points. So it's just crazy to think about. Some of the games this team has played, they haven't been perfect, but they're getting the job done when it really matters most. They're going on enough good runs to be able to pull away. And then defensively, they only gave up 53 points last night, which in anyone's mind, that's pretty good. So overall, you have to be happy with this team. I mean, 6-0, right? So wins at the end of the day are all that matters.
Yeah, certainly. I know Notre Dame wasn't the strongest team coming in, led by Marcus Burton and J.R. Konieczny, both South Bend products. There's something about the South Bend Hoopers, man. There's something in the water, I swear. I'm alluding to that, obviously, because me being from South Bend, if you guys didn't pick up on that. But and I do like to play basketball in my spare time. But regardless of Notre Dame, it's still a really caliber team out of the ACC. Micah Shrewsbury spent a lot of time in the Big Ten. And Jack brought up his comments post game about when he said, he saw those students rolling in and he was like, oh shit. I think that was huge because Shrewsbury has seen a lot of hostile environments, right? Being in the Big Ten, a road game on the Big Ten in the Big Ten in college basketball is one of the hardest things to do, to go up there and win a game. So for him to say that about Colonial Life, I think that's kind of the makings of like a basketball school material. It's what you need to do to make basketball exciting. And I'm happy for the student section and everyone who went out on the school night to be able to get there, because that is, especially early on in the year, right? This team has done what they've needed to do to get this respect. So, the community has shown up for them and shown up for all the work that they've done to get here. I think that's a big step in the right direction for this team, for this program. And for this season too. I mean, Meechie Johnson, we'll get to him plenty, but he's a very streaky player. And so when, you allow Meechie to kind of get into it with a little bit of the crowd at his back, it's a little bit easier for Meechie to get into it, start playing like himself, because he fuels on that, right? Like it's easier in basketball to fuel off of that as well, because there are so many momentum swings. And if you can keep guys like Meechie Johnson into the game, you're going to have success. So shout out to everyone who made it out at Colonial Life. We're going to continue talking about the atmosphere, because it really made a difference in a game like this. And then obviously they've got some really good home games coming up, especially in that month of January, to watch out for, that you still will have a chance to go out and make an opportunity or make a difference for this basketball team.
Yeah, it's hard to expect the fans to show up, realistically speaking, like this the whole year. Friday against George Washington, I don't expect many people to be there, especially students. I'm thinking 5 points might be the home base for the night. But honestly though, it doesn't really matter in retrospect. Like, yeah, when you have a big game, you want your fans there. Obviously, you want your fans there every game. But the big games, especially, Joe, I know you tweeted about it or X'd it yesterday about Kentucky. That'll be one that is definitely an interesting game to see how many fans show up for. I think that'll probably be the biggest game of the year in terms of fan interest. But I mean, hey, they've proven that when the moment is big enough, they'll be there. We saw Alabama last year when the whole Brandon Miller thing went down. The fans were on him about it. And I mean, I wasn't there, but watching on TV, that had to be like one of the loudest, times at CLA for men's basketball. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the crowd certainly makes a difference. And when you have a coach saying, oh shit, here we go. Like, I mean, hey, that's a good sign right there. So
especially one that's seen a lot of basketball. Again, being from Indiana, I know all about all of it. IU, Purdue, those are all really, really hard games to win. And so for Shrews to say that about this program is huge. And credit to Coach Shrewsbury and all of them. Like, it's a very, the bare bones program that they've got right now, but still a very quality basketball team. And, South Carolina, they won the game as they should. despite shooting poorly. I think the effort on the defensive end, like I wrote about it earlier today, Notre Dame was 7 of 26 in the second half. I think that's the biggest thing for me from this game defensively, at least. Your defense stepped up when you needed it, forcing tough shots, whether or not you send them to the line or not. You're going to be forcing tough shots. You're not going to have a foul called on every possession if you're tough in every single possession. So shout out to South Carolina's defense. Won them the game, essentially. And then obviously Meechie Johnson. Can't stop talking about him. 29 points on 9 of 15 shooting, 4 of 9 from 3, and then 7 of 8 from the line. It didn't really feel like a career high kind of style game from him. It wasn't as – or at least I didn't think so. He wasn't, shooting as, kind of just deep threes, and it wasn't one of those where he got going from behind the line. It's a little bit craftier inside the paint, but I mean, the 4 threes, it's still good for him, but I don't know. It didn't seem like a very energy-packed game. I don't know. Jack's looking at me like I'm crazy.
What kind of game were you watching, dude?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, look, alluding to what you said earlier, the crowd, the buzz in the building, big game. That's Meechie Johnson in a nutshell. When the lights are brightest, when the cameras are on him, he's gonna play well for the most part. I mean, hey, we saw it Kentucky last year. He had that buzzer beater against Alabama on national television. It's nothing new with him, I guess. And I mean, hey, 29 points is a career high for him, and he had, I think, 4 threes yesterday. Let me double check on that. But he had a great game yesterday, man. He's been playing really well lately. We saw it against DePaul, where he had, I think, 24 points. And then, he shot 9 of 15 from the floor, 4 of 9 from 3. That's prototypical not BJ Mack. Sorry. Meechie Johnson.
Yeah.
Now. So, and look, he's going to be a little inconsistent. That's who he is. He shoots a lot. He's going to miss a lot. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So, he's not afraid to shoot the ball deep. And, when the team needs him most, I think he'll end up being the guy that always shows up for them.
He'll get to 30. And, I don't know. There have been talks in basketball of a loud 30 and a soft 30. I think he's going to get to 30, and it's going to be a very loud 30. It's going to be some, playmaking threes and stuff like that. I'm not saying it was a soft 29 because he got a lot of very tough buckets at the rim, but it was not a very loud one. There weren't a whole lot of super big tweets. Oh, Meechie's going off right now. Check this out kind of thing. Yeah. I think he's he has that big play potential. And so I wanted to get into Michael's comment real quick. What is the feeling nationally about this Carolina men's basketball team? Is it too early for folks to rate us due to strength of schedule, or are there some early levels of respect? Jack, I don't know how you feel about this, but I'll take a stab at it first, sure. I guess. Yeah. I think the feeling about this Carolina men's basketball team is that it's trending upwards. I think that they haven't really played anybody. I think the Notre Dame game was a step in the right direction, but we'll find out what kind of team this is when they play Clemson, I think. I think the strength of schedule just a little early for some respect, but I think 6-0 is something to hold your head high on, and it's something that the national folks are noticing as well. Because they were receiving votes last week. I'm assuming they will probably be receiving votes this week. It'll be close. They have to obviously beat George Washington on Friday, but I think Clemson next week, if they can find a way to beat Clemson next week, they'll be up ranked without any doubt, because Clemson plays in the ACC, and they play a lot of tough teams, and they've got a lot of returning players, and we'll get to the Clemson preview in a second, but I think that's why they haven't gotten as much respect from a national level.
First off, Michael Ruiz, thank you for your comment. Always appreciated your question, matter of fact. To answer your question, so to answer the first part, what are we feeling nationally about this team? Well, first off, John Rothstein, one of the biggest college basketball junkies, all the freaking time about college basketball. I've had to mute him a few times just to not hear about it all the time. But he said last night, and I quote, "Things you didn't know you'd need to tweet. South Carolina is 6-0. That's right. This is a team that, remember, they were picked to finish last in the SEC. So not a lot of respect, but they're 6-0. It's kind of surprising a lot of people. I don't think they're going to get that respect until, like Joe said, they beat Clemson. And the thing is, I don't think they've played a schedule that is that brutal, to be honest. Yes, if they beat Clemson, that's 3 ACC teams they beat. But you're beating, besides Clemson. Clemson's ranked 35th, I think, in KenPom right now.
Yep.
In the metric system. But Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, those are mid to bottom tier ACC teams.
I'd put Virginia Tech higher than Notre Dame, but continue. Continue. Still a very good basketball team. I think Virginia Tech's more of a quality win, but continue.
Quality. I would say neutral site playing them.
Yeah.
Early in the year, I would say they're probably a quad 2 win right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you beat Clemson, that's a quad 1 win.
Yes.
They just beat Alabama on the road last night, and Alabama's ranked. So
yes.
This Clemson team is very good. But yeah, I don't think they're getting a ton of respect right now. Obviously, they're gaining a little bit of traction in the AP poll with a little bit of the voting. But I think just because of how weak the schedule is, because you're playing teams that are in the back half of the KenPom metrics and all that. So until they beat someone like a Clemson that is a little higher up, I just don't see them getting that type of respect yet. But I mean, that could change. You keep stacking up wins. I think if you continue to remain unbeaten at some point, it's gotta go in your direction, right?
Yeah.
And to answer the second part of your question, Michael, in addition, if we are undefeated after playing GW, Clemson, and ECU, we should be ranked, right? So that would put them at what, 9-0? I don't know. I would say I don't know how ECU is ranking wise. I'm assuming they're not terrible considering South Carolina lost to them last year. So we'll see. If it were up to me, I would say they'd be on the outside of the bubble. I would say they'd probably receive, I don't know how many votes there are in the AP poll, but I would say they'd probably get the double digits, I think, for AP poll votes. But no, I don't think they would get ranked yet. I think it would take another win besides Clemson. And I just don't know if they have the out-of-conference schedule besides Clemson to get that kind of that voting. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Michael.
Yeah, Michael, I would also agree. I think in addition, I think if you are undefeated through GW, Clemson, and ECU, you should be ranked because, again, Clemson's win over Bama validates them even more so. And they're going to be a very good team. Plain and simple. It's going to be a really hard one to go win that one up in Little John, especially because Clemson fans are excited about this rivalry now having come to Williams-Brice. They're going to pack that place and know – I mean, it's going to be a tough road environment regardless. And, I did a little bit of scouting in Clemson, don't know a whole lot, but like I said, they returned a lot of guys. We'll look ahead to that in a little bit here. But, yeah, I think if, they make it through that stretch, certainly be ranked at some point.
Most likely. I would say so. But, again, it's like I said, it's tough with the strength of schedule, though, because you really don't have that many higher – quality wins. You have Virginia Tech. If you beat Clemson, that's another one. Notre Dame, it's not really that big of a win. It's a big win.
No, in Auburn, I was going to say this too. Auburn blew out Notre Dame in Brooklyn. And so if you want to compete to kind of an Auburn level, or at least maybe just a little bit below Bruce Pearl and Auburn, you should be beating Notre Dame like you should have. Because, again, they walloped them in Brooklyn in the Legends Classic, I believe.
Exactly. Yeah, they did. Yeah. They beat them, I think, by 20. So
there's 20-something points. Yeah.
Yeah. And, thing about last night, though, they held Marcus Burton, far and away best player on this team.
Yeah.
To, let's see.
Not many. Burton finished 8
points.
Yep.
This is a guy that is a really good shooter. But again, Auburn, a pretty good SEC team, held them 4 of 20 from the floor when they played at the Barclays Center last week. So I feel like maybe when he plays better competition, something about just not stepping up, but maybe it's too early in the season to tell.
Yeah, and Notre Dame, again, they don't have a whole lot of options outside of Burton. Obviously, Konechny's doing what he can, but when you have a guy – because Burton dropped 30 in his debut, which is, obviously you see a freshman like that, you're circling him on the scouting report when he drops 30 in a debut because he's going to be such a big part of your offense, and South Carolina did a great job of isolating him last night, making him make tough plays, going towards the bucket, trying to pass the ball, getting in lanes. Like Meechie said as well, in his post-game presser, just kind of, they trust each other to get in passing lanes, step up, help side defense, all of that. It's clicking for Lamont and his guys. And, I did want to shout out Lamont Paris at this point, because I think right now having the guys that you do come in from a transfer standpoint with what you had, you have to give credit there to Lamont for balancing out his roster, knowing that the guys you were going to bring in are going to buy in and then mesh with each other as well. Like, because it's different. If you have guys buy into your system but aren't meshing, you're not going to have as much success in college basketball. But again, he's found a good combination of exactly what you need. Talon Cooper, Miles Studi. Again, they didn't have the best games last night, but they're a very crucial part of this team. Zach Davis, Lamont mentioned him in his post-game presser, came in. I don't think Zach Davis had any finish with any points, but his plus-minus was really well. It was really good.
I think it was minus 23, I think.
Yeah.
It was really good. I mean, Lamont pointed it out. But, yeah, I mean, hey, he's done a heck of a job getting these transfers to come in, and they're buying into what he's doing. And, even when they're not playing well. I posted a video last night of Miles Studi. He went 0 for 5 from the floor last night. And then, we're walking out of one of the first guys to walk out of Lamont's press conference. And, I noticed Studi on the other side of the court just shooting up some threes and taking some free throws and stuff. So, a lot of people seem to like that. So that's one of the differences between this year's team and last year's, is that they're putting in the work when they don't have to be better. And I think that's something that, the common folk, the fans around this part of town can really appreciate.
Yeah, most certainly. And again, I did want to keep talking about this atmosphere, because that's what you do at a basketball school. Growing up at Notre Dame, that's what they would do for big games. North Carolina, Duke, and the ACC would come and you'd pack the place no matter how bad the team was, right? And I think especially after last year, this team is winning back the fans. Certainly lost a couple last season with everything that happened, the drama in the locker room, all of that, them not playing as much as a team. I don't think they really earned, or fans didn't feel like they earned the respect of the fan base. This year's team, however, the way they play, Jack, I think is a big thing too, just earning respect of this fan base. They play hard-nosed basketball. They share the basketball on offense. There's at least 2-3 passes per possession. And I think that's what you want to see. And that's, again, the makings of a basketball school. That's what you need to do to increase your men's basketball program. If you want to get out of the gutter of the SEC, that's how you do it. It's by showing up and giving this team love when they deserve it.
Absolutely, man. They really, it's so cliche, but they do really play for each other, it seems. They're not a one-man show. That's a phrase I've used probably 100 times now, between this, radio, whatever the case might be, talking about this team. But yeah, it's not a single one sole guy doing the job. Meechie had a big game last night, but BJ Mack also scored 17 points. Zach Davis, like we said, had a really good night despite not scoring any points. Talon Cooper, he had a critical and one. He got fouled on a shot under the rim, and that gave South Carolina – it was during that 13-1 run that South Carolina went on the second half to recapture the lead, and then they jumped out to double digits for the first time before Notre Dame cut the lead again. But, yeah, Joe, they really just – they got so much talent on this team, and it's hard not to spread the ball around when you have that much talent compared to last year where it's like, okay, Gigi Jackson, Meechie Johnson, drop off a little bit, Hayden Brown, Josh Gray, then drop off, and you have everyone else. So it's a lot more balanced out this year, and I think that's really beneficial for this team.
Yeah, most certainly. And Jay Diz, appreciate you tuning in as always. He said, I want to give some props to BJ Mack. Dude totally transformed his game and body from last season at Wofford. He has lost weight and has a back to the basket game he didn't have before. Absolutely, Jay Diz. And I'm glad you brought that up because, his back to the basket game has certainly improved from his tape from last year at Wofford. Sometimes with big guys, you expect more weight, helps you, maneuver down in the post. BJ got more agile, and now he can obviously he could shoot the three, but now he can shoot it even better. Running in transition, he's just more agile, and he's what you need for South Carolina when you don't have as strong of a post presence. Him being versatile allows him to be the offensive weapon that you need him to be, but also to run the floor and rebound too, offensively, defensively, wherever you need BJ Mack. But Jadez, I'm glad you brought him up because, made a very big change from last season. And, that shows you he's committed, right? He's ready to go for this year. He really wants – all his eggs are in one basket, essentially. And, he wants to have success here, along with Miles Studi and Talon Cooper and Meechie Johnson and all these guys that are, veterans that are sticking around in college basketball. They're here for one reason, and that's to win. Or else they would have been playing overseas, taking a contract, or doing something else elsewhere. But they're here because they want to win and have success in college basketball. And BJ is a very good testament to that because, changing up his body, like Jay Diz says, and just all of that, just reshaping his game. And I'm sure Talon Cooper, Meechie, and Studi have all made adjustments to play and fit in this lineup. But I think right now, that unselfishness from BJ and all those transfer guys and Meechie as well is starting to pay off for sure.
I'll tell you what, man. If I'm a betting man, I'm taking the over on BJ Mack to get over his point total on whatever site y'all use every game because he's a consistent scorer for this team, and he's going to produce. Like, okay, in Charlotte, I think he had maybe 4 points, maybe. I'm sorry, DePaul, he had 4 points. Other than that, he's been really good. He's had double digits every game, and he's just a really solid player for this team. And thank you for the comment, Jay Diz, by the way. But, he's got the size to go into the paint and make plays, body up defenders. But then the threat about him, and it's kind of like a Kevin Durant type threat, one of those big guys in the NBA, is that he can also shoot the three pretty well. So, you got to give props to him, man. He's a really good multifaceted type of player, and I think he really complements Meechie Johnson's game really well.
Yeah, and I mean it's like Mario and Luigi essentially. It's a really good pairing, and they work together really well. And then all of the guards on this team play together really well. And the buy-in factor, right, Jack? I go back to this with this basketball team: the buy-in factor, the buy-in factor, the buy-in factor. This is what's going to hold them together throughout the year. I mean, they might lose. Sure. You could go lose the game to Clemson. How will this team respond? For me right now, I think this team is fully bought in. I think if they could go lose the game to Clemson and bounce back the next week, after Clemson, their first real test after that it's home against Mississippi State, January 6th. It's right as students are getting back from break, so it's going to be tough to pack the place.
Nationally televised game, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, nationally televised game. That's going to be a big one. Students, whoever's watching this, like you need to get back for that one and pack Colonial Life, and then you go on the road at Alabama. That's going to be one of the tougher back-to-back stretches that you'll see in college basketball, let alone the SEC, Mississippi State, Alabama. But again, Alabama just lost to Clemson. So, I mean, if you can even play Clemson close, if you're going to lose that game, play them close, you can go beat Alabama. They almost beat them last year. It's not like they're world beaters this year. Lost a lot of talent, lost their best player, Brandon Miller, to the Charlotte Hornets. So Bama is certainly beatable. Nate Oates has things going, sure. But again, if Clemson beat them with a bunch of returning guys, I think you can certainly do it as well with, some veterans. Jada has asked any word on how CMB is coming along. Mono seems to be a tough thing for him to come back from. Jack, you want to bring it up again? We mentioned it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, sorry if you missed that earlier, Jada. I'll bring it up one more time.
Yeah.
Hopefully no one else asks after that, but whatever. So, with CMB, I had people asking me yesterday, Jack, what's the deal with CMB, Colin Murray-Boyles? Because obviously, if you guys have missed it, he's a freshman forward that was expected to have a big role with this team this year, but he has mono. So he's been recovering from that for about a month now, I would say. And then, last night, asked Lamont, hey, what's kind of the deal with CMB? What kind of progress has he been making since we last spoke? And the word is that today was his first day back at practice. He was full go, able to do full court work, half court work. And again, this is just from what Lamont said. But the thing with him is he has to gain the weight that he lost, because when you have mono, you tend to lose a little bit of weight. So I don't know how much he lost, but it sounds like he lost a little bit. And so he's going to have to gain some of that back before he gets into game shape, basically. So Derek Scott, the radio announcer for USC, apparently said yesterday that CMB could be playing in the Clemson game. I don't know how much I buy that. That just came from someone who was on the forums and posted about it, so I don't know. Just taking their word for it, but I'd be surprised if he played at Clemson. But I'm thinking more along the lines of like Winthrop, Elon, one of those games. Maybe by the time SEC plays rolls around, SEC play rolls around, he'll be back and 100%. But yeah, that's kind of the update right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay Diz, again, appreciate you tuning in. Frequent flyer with our Gamecock Central live programming. Yeah, no worries, Jay Diz. Appreciate you tuning in.
Question.
Yeah, appreciate you tuning in. Like I said, frequent flyer with the GC lives here, so we always appreciate you tuning into our show. I know we may not be the best, but we're out here. We're trying, Jag. We're no Jamie Shaw out here.
We may not be Jamie Shaw. We might not be Wes Clark, Chris
Clark. Chris Clark.
South Carolina baseball legend, Wes Clark. Yeah. Wes Mitchell, please, for the love of God, don't. I don't need him to see that. Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark. We're not those guys, but man, hey, I think we're pretty damn good, to be honest.
Yeah. And I mean, Wes and Chris, they're more football anyways. But Jamie Shaw, in terms of basketball, it's the GOAT. No one can do it as well as he can.
No one can touch us in baseball, though. So
yeah, absolutely. And we'll have foul balls too as well. Yeah, GC Live foul balls. That'll be a weekly thing. I guess we can quickly talk about the women's team. I mean, they haven't played anybody of note since we've last talked about the women's team. They're going on that Tobacco Road stretch, like Wellbaum said. That I believe that's this weekend, right?
That starts tomorrow. So
starts tomorrow.
Yep, they'll go to UNC Chapel Hill first, play there, and then I believe they will be in Durham at Cameron Indoor to go play Duke. So jealous of anyone on the South Carolina beat that is going, especially Chris Wellbaum. But hey, I'm not paid to write about women's basketball, unfortunately. So, North Carolina though. Right now it says North Carolina is ranked 24 in the country, but I think they just lost. They lost to somebody. They're 5-2 on the year, 4-0. Oh, my bad. They've lost back-to-back games. They lost to Kansas State, and then they lost to one-time Sweet 16 in the men's FGC, otherwise known as Florida Gulf Coast. So I know that has nothing to do with the women's
team,
but anyway, I thought it was just fun to point out. But I mean, look, South Carolina, they should come away 2-0. You would think, but it won't be easy because it's an ESPN game tomorrow night at the Dean Dome. Well, I don't know if they played. I don't think they played the Dean Dome actually.
I don't know.
I think the women's team has their own small there. But anyway, that's besides the point. It's going to be a big crowd, regardless. Any way you spin it. Anytime South Carolina comes on the road, I know they go to Bowling Green in a few weeks. I mean, they'll play Utah soon. I mean, hey, these games are going to be packed, so it's a hot commodity, and we'll see what South Carolina brings. But I think this is a younger team that lost a lot of talent from last year, and they really haven't been battle tested yet, I don't think. I mean, I know they played Notre Dame in France. I know they played Maryland, but they beat those handedly. So this is their first true test.
Road test,
the Tobacco Road test. So you're getting two straight road games versus two pretty good ACC teams. So we'll see what this team's made of, and I do think they're going to go 2-0 on this Tobacco Road trip.
You would think, right? Like Jack said, I mean, the toughest, I guess, road test is, if you can call it. I mean, both teams are fluttering within the top 20s. I don't know if either or has cracked into the top 25 yet. But So I think, and Michael, I am not sure about this question. Any information how this $1 million Garnet Trust donation trickles down to the men's and women's basketball teams? I'm not involved with the specifics. I'm assuming it will to some extent because the $1 million, like you can split $1 million a lot of ways, especially when it's $2 million if you can get it up to the donation. And I believe we're still trying to match the $1 million donation at this point. So never a bad time than now to donate to Garnet Trust. But yeah, Michael, I believe it'll trickle down one way or another because there's a lot of ways to split $1 million, especially
That
when
is
it's two.
that is probably a question for Chris Clark or our other guy Mike Uva or Wes Mitchell.
And Jeremy Smith over there at the Garnet Trust as
Yeah.
well. If you wanted to tweet at him, I mean, or I don't know. I don't know if he wants his mentions full of it, but yeah, tell him Intern Joe sent you with some questions because he's the man with all of that. I don't think he'll get too mad at me for sending him people that are interested about Garnet Trust.
But it is a good question, right?
Yeah, it is a very good question. Absolutely. You want to make sure all athletes are covered with this.
I think they definitely will be. No idea how this works. And I don't know. I mean, maybe like depending on who donated it and what they kind of want out of it. I don't know how it works. But I'm assuming the money's just kind of spread out amongst the teams and stuff. So we'll see. But good question, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys are interested on if having Jeremy on is something you guys are interested in, see what kind of opportunities that he's cooking up for the men's basketball team, the women's basketball team, cool projects they're working on, let us know. It could be something we do in the future. I'm definitely interested in having him on my show eventually. Still trying to work that out. But should be a good time. But yeah, Michael, appreciate that question. But cycling back to it, I guess the women's team, I would assume that they're going to do it pretty handily on the road, the tobacco road, but you never know, obviously. But you should be good, barring any injuries. Knock on wood. So there you go. But next week will be our women's basketball focus show. Like we'll talk about those two games, and then South Carolina also plays Dawn and their squad. They play Utah, number 10 ranked Utah that weekend. So next week we will be having Jonathan Hampton, former graduate assistant to Dawn Staley, right-hand man to Dawn Staley as well. He's a really cool interview, knows basketball really, really well. He also was the TA for one of my sport and entertainment management classes. I can remember sitting in the back of class picking his brain about the scouting report of Caitlin Clark, really knowledgeable dude. I'm excited to have him on the show. Friend of Gamecock Central's. See him at the kickoff party all the time. So really excited to have him on this show to kind of break down just everything women's basketball and how, like, actually to get how good they are, because Hamp has seen a lot of good teams. He was a part of, I think he's got 2 or 3 rings at this point now. But so that should be a really good interview. But again, the women's basketball team should take care of business this weekend. We're assuming they will. And then Tennessee just lost to Notre Dame up there in South Bend. I know Tennessee's also on South Carolina's radar as well, coming up here soon. But Jack, quickly going back to the men's team, looking ahead, obviously Clemson. What are you seeing from Clemson real quick before we hit some ads and get some final thoughts? But what are you seeing from Clemson? What scares you? What do you like? What don't you like about the Tigers?
Yeah. Well, first off, it'd be foolish of us to brush over not brush over George Washington.
Yeah.
Real quick, South Carolina's favored. They should win that game. I think they have an 83% chance to win, according to ESPN. But the keys to that game, in my opinion, is they're not going to have a great crowd, I don't think, for Friday's game. But I would imagine they're not looking too far ahead to Clemson already. But taking it one game at a time seems to be the recipe for success. So just keep playing your brand of ball, and you should be able to take care of business. But jumping into Clemson, Joe, they're led by PJ Hall, who's a center on Clemson's roster. He's averaging 21 points a game. So that's going to be a big focal point, I think, in terms of stopping the Tigers, just because, South Carolina they faced guys like Lynn Kidd. They'll get PJ Hall. next week. But, I don't think South Carolina still has that true center type player. You have Stephen Clark, you have BJ Mack, you have BBV, Josh Gray. But who's going to be, who's going to be the guy that steps in and faces up against him and stops him? Because it seems like, anyone that's played him, even Alabama, has struggled to stop him. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, and then they got Chase Hunter and Joseph Girard, two guards on the team that are, averaging right about 13 points apiece. So it's going to be a tough test. I think Clemson is a very good team. Like we said, they beat Alabama yesterday in that ACC SEC challenge. But other than that, they played Boise State, Winthrop, UAB. Davidson. Good wins, but I think personally better strength of schedule than South Carolina. But we'll see. It's going to be tough, man. It's a road game. Probably a hostile environment. Haven't really gotten the scouting report from my sister who goes there. So that'll be interesting to get down there and check it all out. But, it should be a good game. But even if South Carolina loses that game, I don't really think that defines their season. This season, I don't think was ever going to be undefeated the entire way. We're competing for Final Four bid and all that. Let's keep it realistic. This team might not even make an NIT. We'll see. Like Jada said, this might be Bronwell's best team. Hey, yep. Clemson is really good. 35th in the Ken Palm metrics, as I said before. This is a team that always seems to find a way to get to the tournament. So be a big challenge for South Carolina. Definitely, easily the hardest game on their out-of-conference schedule.
Yeah, I would tend to agree on their out-of-conference schedule at least, obviously, because we know how hard SEC play can be. A lot of veterans up there in Clemson. You needed a buzzer-beating 3 last year to beat them. I can remember exactly where I was for that game and what the reaction was. It was obviously big, but we were in a hotel for the Florida game, man. Like it was that weekend. So shout out to Coach Tanner for getting this one moved as well. Hopefully it's, off of that Thanksgiving weekend or week before Thanksgiving because all the students are gone that week. So hopefully you can kind of keep it where it's at. So that way it gives students time to, get to that game. Very big test, PJ Hall. He can shoot the 3 as well. I think, if BJ Mack can have a day guarding him and Stephen Clark and BVB, just you need to be tough with him down in the post. I know he's going to get his, and it's all about limiting everybody else, and limiting, like Meechie was talking about last night, getting in the passing lanes, playing hard-nosed defense is how you're going to win it. I think you should have faith that this team certainly can. If this year's Clemson team were to go against last year's South Carolina team, I would be expecting a blowout. It's not the case this year. I think, 2 6-0 teams, it should be 6-0 teams going up against each other. It should not be, it should be an issue, I guess you will, for South Carolina. It's going to be a close game.
Yeah, it definitely will be. But it's a big test for South Carolina and what they need heading into conference play. It'll give you a real indication of what this team is made of and what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig brings it up. Jack has a little Perry Orth grin to him. Well, speaking of Perry Orth, I want to talk to you guys about one of our sponsors tonight. Perry Orth was helped by one of our title sponsors tonight, Clint Hammond of the Movement Mortgage Network. He and his wife were helped out by Clint for their mortgage. So give our guy Clint a call in need of help with your mortgage. Call on our good friend Clint Hammond of the Movement Mortgage Network. He's been in the mortgage industry since 2003, which allows him to help everyone from the first-time home buyer to the complicated and complex jumbo buyer, whether you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance. Nothing is more important than a well-thought-out financial strategy that comes with 5-star customer service. He's even helped out our very own Wes Mitchell. And like I said, former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth with their mortgages. Give our guy Clint a call. He's above us on all of our Gamecock Central live programming. His number on your screen right now. And for those listening, 803-771-6933. Once again, 803-771-6933. And going to our other sponsor, our good friends over at Liberty Tax. Taxiety is that uncertain feeling you get right before doing your taxes, but you don't have to go through it alone. The tax team at Liberty Tax in Irmo, Lexington, and Columbia will walk you through the process, clear up any confusion, and guarantee you'll get the biggest possible refund or your money back. It's tax time. If you're in a hurry for your refund, call the tax team at Liberty Tax. Fast, accurate, and guaranteed. On the other hand, if you think you might be owing Uncle Sam, talk to the Liberty Tax team to make sure you're not paying more than you should owe. They'll find every possible deduction for you. Locally owned and operated, staffed by tax professionals from your neighborhood. Open 9 to 9 on weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturdays with multiple service options. Start through the Liberty Tax mobile app or through the desktop portal. Make an appointment or just walk in. Give a call to upload your tax documents, and when you come in, your return will be ready to review and sign. Give them a call on your screen right now. And for those listening, 803-462-5576. Once again, on your screen right now. And for those listening, 803-462-5576 for all of your tax needs this season. Jack, as we wrap things up, you want to give me some final thoughts heading into Clemson and just kind of recapping Notre Dame? What are you seeing from the Fighting Quarter Zips on this Wednesday night?
Fighting Quarter Zips. It's really taken on a life of its own, hasn't it, eh? Just a fun team to watch, man. I keep saying it. South Carolina has had some bad basketball teams as of late in the post-Frank Martin era, even when in Frank's tenure, to be honest with you. But there's a team that is playing very good basketball right now. They really haven't been overly battle-tested yet with facing good opponents, but I think Clemson get through George Washington, and then you're 7-0 with a chance to go 8-0. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when that 2016-17 team, the one that, as we all know, went to the Final Four, I think they started out 8-0 before getting their first loss. So we're on the verge of a little bit of history for what it's worth. But hey, this is a good team, and enjoy it while you can, guys. I mean, hey, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun watching this team right now, and they make my job a lot easier with all these wins going on. So.
Yeah, it's certainly more fun when you have a basketball team that is as fun as this one is, and makes home games a lot of fun at Colonial Life. I'm sure. I mean, Jack, one of the core memories of our class was that Kentucky game that they, stormed the floor our freshman season. So when Colonial Life can be exciting and rocking like that, consistently, it makes things a lot of fun around here, and also makes players want to play for you. It allows Lamont to cook, if you will, because I see everywhere on Twitter, let Lamont cook, and he's trying to. When you guys show up to games and actually buy into a basketball team, that is how that happens. So that's a big part. And then obviously supporting Garnet Trust. We had a couple questions about that tonight, so appreciate you guys asking that. Jack, anything else before we head out of here?
Non-basketball related question right now, week 1. I know there's a topic on everyone's mind with everything going on with Gamecock football. Who's your quarterback week 1?
Well, currently there is a quarterback situation, a brewing.
And you can go into the portal too.
Yep. And I guess since we are live, I hope this isn't a problem going into a little bit of football news. But I would assume you're going to add a guy like KJ Jefferson or somebody of that nature. But is he the starter going forward? No. I think Lenoris beats out anybody for a job. I think you add a veteran quarterback, like Mike was saying on Talking Tuesdays last night, you add a veteran quarterback for a competition standpoint, but I think Lenore Sellers at this point has enough talent to win the job. Will he? If you bring in a veteran guy, I think it's going to be up. It's going to be close. Craig brings it up. Bailey and Colton are both leaving, so
that's right.
You kind of have to go into the portal. If you add a guy like KJ Jefferson, it's certainly going to be a controversy or a battle going forward. But then you also have Luke Doty mixed in there as well. Personally, my opinion, I think Lenore Sellers has enough talent to win the job straight away, no matter who you add.
No, I get that. Just briefly touching on it real quick before we get out of here. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's interesting that, Tanner Bailey and Colton Gauthier both left South Carolina today. Wes Mitchell, I think, confirmed it on GamecockCentral.com. But, it leaves you in a sticky situation because you have Luke Doty, Lenore Sellers, and Dante Reno competing for that QB1 job next year. That's presuming they don't get a quarterback in the portal, which I think they'd be really foolish to not go out and see what's out there because there's so many good quarterbacks out there right now in the portal. But the rumor is KJ Jefferson is looking at South Carolina potentially. Maybe he's got the same size as Lenore's guys, 6'3", about 240, and he has experience too. So I think if I'm a betting man, I'm saying KJ's probably the starter week 1. And I like what I've seen from him, man. He almost beat Alabama earlier this year. Granted, Arkansas is not very good. Then again, they don't have a great offensive line either, but he's got the experience that Lenore's is kind of lacking. And that's not a knock on Lenore's at all. He's a great quarterback, great player, but it remains to be seen what he can really do at this level yet in a full capacity. So whoever wins that job, I don't know if they'll hold it for long. So, it's going to be it's going to be a carousel next year for a little bit until we get into the thick of things. But, yeah.
Yeah, and all the hypotheticals. I'll probably repeat this on my show at some point, but I think if you do add a quarterback, it also begs the question, if you add a guy with experience, do you want to go through the whole ups and downs, the whole carousel of it all? Starting a guy, having an inconsistency between starting quarterbacks, do you want to deal with all that? And that's certainly a question to be asked. If I'm the head coach, which, I mean, no one's calling me, right? Ray Tanner's not calling me to ask me to coach this football team, but if I'm the head coach, I'm not necessarily doing that. It is kind of an NFL similar move. I was talking about this earlier. If you were to bring in a guy like KJ Jefferson, because you have the old dog brought in to eventually, hopefully within some point that year, have the younger, more primed quarterback make the leap into the starting role, and for the veteran to kind of fade back. So I don't know. I think not having these 15 practices hurt Sellers, and the bowl game as well, because I'm assuming with Spencer opting out, he probably would have played in it.
He would have started. He would have started. But for anyone that is a Lenore Sellers fanboy or anything out there, not knock against anyone. I respect it. But there is a reality where South Carolina does have to go out and get another quarterback. So, and plus, Dow Loggins knows KJ, Trey Knox. I'm sure he could really vouch for KJ Jefferson. And why wouldn't you, man? He's been around this league. He's competed in the SEC West, guys, for 5 years. So I'll take that any day over Lenore Sellers right now, just because we don't know how good Sellers can actually be. We've gotten glimpses of it, but then again, it's in garbage time. So it's a whole different beast when you're starting out against in the game, and we'll see what happens. But Joe, you want to wrap this thing up?
Yeah, absolutely. And Jay just brings up Sellers got hurt in the UK game. With the teams that we'll play, we'll need all the dudes we can get. Yeah, absolutely. And I can see where Jay is at that point, especially after this last season with everyone so banged up and whatnot. You do need anybody you can get. Stack the QB room at this point. Just let them all compete. Throw the best guy out there, whatever quarterback you have that's been playing well that week. But again, this is a basketball show. So, but wrapping things up, thank you guys for tuning in tonight to the Hard Fowl. Again, I think next week we are also going to go live with Jonathan Hampton, talk some women's basketball as they prepare to take on Utah next week. But South Carolina men's team has George Washington and Clemson. We'll recap all of that as well. But thank you guys for tuning in this week's edition of the Hard Fowl. I'm your host, Intern Joe Macheca. That's Jack Veltri. We will see you guys again next week.
All right. Thanks, guys.